this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we've said before, the Labour Party is supporting this bill. It's a bill which, as we've said in both the second reading and the committee stages, assists in the collection of student loans. It has streamlined the student loan system. It's meant that it will mean that students will be able to go online, see what their loan status is, pay online, keep in communication with the IRD much more effectively, and certainly improve the situation we have at the moment where, particularly for those overseas anyway, around about $2 billion worth of loans is actually held by students who have gone overseas. So while many of those people may not want to pay their student loans, many of them possibly would like to, but have difficulty accessing. And I suggest, Mr. Speaker, that the $22 million that this upgrade will purports to save by 2014 could actually be significantly more than that, just by the fact that people will pay their loan back on time simply because it's easier to do. People who are working in Australia or the UK or something like that might be able now to go online and say, look, I want to go back to New Zealand, and I think I'll pay a bit more off my student loan, because when I do go back to New Zealand, I'm going to have to do that. Just a reminder, Mr. Speaker, just about the size of the student loans in New Zealand. It's the nominal value of loan balances now is around $11 billion, and about 587,000 people had a student loan with the IRD that it was for collection. The average amount borrowed, which although we've heard, as my colleagues have said, heard of loans that have been in excess of $15,000, $20,000. In fact, the median. The average amount borrowed was just under $7,000, and that is paid off. For those who leave and remain in New Zealand, it's paid off after about 4.5 years, once people earning a salary have reached that threshold of around $19,000, which actually isn't very much, but nevertheless they start automatically paying back that money at that time. So the two issues, the issues around the implementation of this bill for the Labour Party is certainly not one of modernising and moving forward. I think that's well accepted. There are a couple of issues, though, that have come up in the course of the debates, particularly in the committee stages, which I think are worthy of mentioning here at this point. The first is the additional charges. The one-off charge, and then the $60 one-off charge, and then the $40 a year administration charge. Given the fact that the system is going to save us money and save New Zealand money, this is another imposition, I would argue, on students. Students are at the moment stretched. We have at the moment coming through Parliament the Education Amendment Bill number 4, which, while limiting levies, is that we know that levies in universities in particular are going to go up. We know that if the voluntary student membership bill goes through, that's right, that will gut student associations, and instead of a voluntary contribution to student associations, there will be a mandatory levy levied by the university, because that has happened in every single case, both in Australia and here, where student associations that provide a plethora of different services that are valuable, Mr. Speaker, will now not be able to do that. The other thing that I want to point out with regard to student loans is that this applies to every New Zealander who wants to take out a student loan, every New Zealander, bar those over the age of 55.
That's right.
So if you're over the age of 55, this piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, from here on in, will have absolutely no relevance to you because people over 55 aren't eligible for student loans. And Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to say that the instruments that were brought in on budget this year has been discriminatory against those aged 55 and more. They will not be able to access the same assistance and support when they go through a university as everybody under the age of 55. And that, sir, is discriminatory. And if we're talking about an education system that is meant to be serving everybody, and if we're talking about an education system which will both prepare, upskill, and provide people with in-job training so that they can take on and adapt to the changes that's going to happen in our workforce, then that is a major step backwards. So, Mr. Speaker, while I believe that this piece of legislation will certainly help those people with loans or will get loans into the future, that luxury, that right has been taken away from some members of our society who choose to go into tertiary education and be assisted to do that. And I would argue that 55, Mr. Chair, is a pretty young age in today's workforce, in today's world and in today's workforce. We are looking at people certainly the retirement age being extended further and further out. If there's any, if we're following trends of any other countries in the world, if that was to happen, and we know that people would like to work longer and longer as health improves, then those people who would like to retrain will simply not be able to do that. Will simply not be able to do that if they require additional support and assistance. So, Mr. Speaker, while I come back to the point of this piece of legislation smoothing the way and upgrading our ability to be able to get the student loan back, to assist those who have student loans to be able to repay their loans, and that is a good thing. It's certainly not going to be the case for many. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on the point that the Minister raised in committee stages regarding the computer system. There is a great deal of consternation out there that around $21 million has been spent on the Oracle system out of the $35 million that was appropriated for upgrading the computer system. I accept the Minister's argument that this is a very complicated procedure to move so much information into one computer system. But I should say that we have had follies of computer systems in the past. We have had a number of occasions to warn us to keep a very, very close eye on the spend for this particular project. We are now going back to the first system so that the Oracle system, as the Minister says, will be able to kick in a bit later so that this legislation can take effect earlier, which is in principle a good thing. But I do think, and I would like to come back to the fact that computer systems and upgrading computers have been hugely traumatic and problematic in the past, and I hope this doesn't happen to this computer system, and we will be keeping a very close eye on it. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, once again I'd like to give the Labour Party support to this piece of legislation that improves the administration and hopefully the repayment of student loans, and I thank you for the time to be able to speak on it.
Amy Adams.